All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Brett Heath. He is the CEO of Metella Royalty and Streaming. And Brett, it's good to have you back again. How are you?
I'm doing well, Steve. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thanks very much. And it's been a little while since we had a chance to check in with you and see what's been going on. I know it's been very busy for you and the company, especially you've made an acquisition as well in December. Talk all about that in a second, but maybe just refresh everyone on the company and what you do.
Yeah, Steve. So we're a precious metals royalty and streaming company. We've been around since 2016 when we founded and started this business. Since that time, we've completed 32 transactions. We've acquired now 102 royalties, and our portfolio covers approximately about 1.7 million gold equivalent ounces to our account. So quite substantial size compared to what it was in the early years. And we look to continue to grow our business.
Yeah, we obviously know about the mining industry over the last few years has been pretty tough. Has that been a benefit for a company like yours that it's for companies that are potentially looking for cash in order to give up a royalty?
Well, it's a benefit, but it also can sometimes be a bit challenging, given that the capital markets itself were have been quite challenging in regards to the access and particularly the cost of capital. We've seen increase quite significantly over the last few years with interest rates going up and the kind of lack of flows within particularly the small caps. But at the same time, you are definitely right. That also is magnified with a lot of the mining issuers,
Yeah.
and so it does create some favorable type of conditions to be able to put together some good transactions. And we over the last 8 years we've been very very aggressive with our capital deployment. We're kind of taking a little bit of a more cautious approach today, but yeah, that's kind of how we've seen that.
Yeah, let's talk about Nova Royalty because you had a merger in December that you announced in 2023. And I was reading your most recent financials. You were talking about implementing that and doing some things in Q1 of 2024. So tell me a little bit about that one.
Well, Nova was a very, very significant acquisition for us. It was our largest transaction in the history of the business by a very, very wide margin. And it was a merger of another royalty company. It was also the addition of a third metal. If you remember, previously we were 100% gold and silver. Copper is something we've always been very, very bullish on for quite some time. And it never in the past, it never really lined up in regards to kind of investor preference in regards to mixing the two. But over the last few years, particularly, and a lot of this was driven by the major mining companies as well on the gold side, and really the investor demand for exposure to copper as an additional metal. That was kind of what ended up allowing the companies to come together. And it does a lot of different great things. But one of the more significant things is that it gives gold investors really exposure to some of just the most phenomenal assets on the planet. Most of these big copper mines, they go much, much, much longer. They're much, much larger than the typical gold mine and the typical mine life. And so from a company perspective, it really allows us to plan for the future, plan for the long term, and have sustainable, projected growth in our cash flows for quite some time.
Brett, what does the next 6 months to a year look like for the company? And does an acquisition like that sort of not change the focus, but sort of hone in on an asset that obviously you think can be a bonus in the future as well? Will you look at a lot of different metals now, or are you still pretty gold, silver, and now a bit of copper?
Just the three metals. We're still very, very focused on the three metals that we think are going to be the leaders in this next commodity cycle. Also, we think they are kind of the most critical given the macro side. Obviously, gold and silver from a monetary perspective, and then copper from a green capex kind of energy transition. It seems like every other couple of years there's a new very, very significant demand is created for copper as a metal in
Yeah.
basically the new economy. So, we think that those are the three we want to focus our shareholders on, and continue to give exposure within those commodities. And for future transactions, our portfolio is quite significant now. And what we did was we focused on growth when a lot of other companies were focusing on cash flow. Now all that growth is starting to cash flow. Just today, we had an announcement from one of our royalty operators called G Mining. They just poured their first gold bar. And so that asset is now officially in production. Hasn't reached commercial production. We think it will probably in Q3, but it is officially producing today. And we have a 0.75% GVR on this asset. It's going to be the third largest gold mine once it's at its full production rate in Brazil, or primary gold mine in Brazil. So very, very significant asset, long mine life, great exploration upside, great mining team. But more importantly, it's going to be starting basically this next quarter, most likely. It's going to kind of grow into being our most significant cash flowing asset. And we also have another 4 to 5 assets that we're potentially have the potential to start production according to the operator guidance within the next like 12 to 18 months. So wow. The whole profile of the business is really set to change, and so it gives us the flexibility to be patient and really focus on some of the more meaningful transactions.
Fascinating stuff. Brett, thanks so much. Great to catch up with you, and congratulations on the success. It's a very exciting time for you and the team.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Brett Heath, the CEO of Metella Royalty and Streaming.